Welcome back. Welcome. Join over 200 members now in our mini leagues for both free and paid for Euro Fantasy. Plus, enter our Discord community for live banter, advice, and opinions from across the world. And head to www.esportslive.com.au for weekly articles and more information. And head to @esportslive now for all of our socials. Fantasy managers, hello and welcome back to the final preview show before the Euro 2020 competition starts. We're just one day away now as of the time that we are recording this, and we all cannot wait. We've got three of the usuals with me tonight to dissect it, and we cannot wait. So we'll start with you, Matt. How are you feeling?
Oh, absolutely buzzing, Elliot. Can't wait. One more sleep. Well, technically two more sleeps for us, actually, until we get to watch the first game. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a cracker. Italy, Turkey to open up. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
Should be awesome, mate. And I'm loving the kit that you've got on there. You've gone retro England. So where'd you pull that from?
Yeah, retro England. This one's off kit bag as well. Actually, I've had it since the last World Cup with Gascoigne on the back. So yeah, got it out now, ready for Sunday night.
Oh, mate, you should have dyed your hair white as well, gone the full way like Phil Foden. But the other man on the podcast who's also got his England top on like an excited little boy is Jack from Esports Live. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, buzzing, mate. Can't wait. I'll absolutely love the retro there from the Guru. I was contemplating dye my hair blonde, but I think I'll stick it like this for now and see how Foden gets on first.
Yeah, probably not the worst shout there, mate. I don't think any of us will be going blonde unless we win the competition and Foden brings it home. But then, we'll have to maybe sort something out if that ever does eventuate in the end. And then finally, as the usual on the podcast tonight, we've got Statman Dave. How are you doing, mate?
Going well, Elliot. Got up early Tuesday morning to watch the Mighty Socceroos play and get into my late night football watching groove. It was a little 5 a.m. start here in Melbourne, 5-1 demolition of Chinese Taipei. So not bad considering we were a pretty young team preparing for the Olympics more than anything. So might even get around the Matildas tonight that are playing at 2 a.m.
It's definitely good practice, mate, starting watching all the football that you possibly can. But there was a few other games in the European sense as well that have happened since our last podcast. And we'll start with you, Dave. Germany absolutely demolishing Lithuania there, didn't they? 7-1. And just who sort of stood out for you there, and who's someone that people should, have on their minds as they make all the final additions to their Euro fantasy team?
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a mauling in the end. There was goals for Gosens, Gundogan, Muller, Gnabry, Werner, and Sane. And probably the interesting thing is who actually started in the game as well. So Havertz got the start over Leroy Sane. They both. Sane certainly got on the score sheet though, and Muller also started ahead of Werner, but both of them managed to score as well. So some interesting sort of things to think about when you're picking your team for the first week.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt, you got to have a little smile on your face there, even if it is the German score, and seeing Gundogan back on the score sheet must make you happy.
Yeah, I did see that, and it's tempted me. I'm not going to lie, it's tempted me. So it's good to see. Might make the cut.
I thought you were laughing at the fact that Werner scored.
Yeah, that's all.
One of the two, mate. But no, he's definitely he's playing on a few managers' minds, I think, as well. No one's really sure if he's going to get that advanced role that you spoke about, especially on the last podcast. But it's going to be interesting. But another player who's playing on a lot of people's minds, including myself right now, Jack, is Bruno Fernandes, who helped Portugal to another win, didn't he?
Yeah, listen, I know it's against Israel, right? But I watched the game and they absolutely ran riot. I mean, the front six for Portugal were unplayable. Ronaldo looked like a 22-year-old. He was getting around it, and he celebrates like he's still scoring his first goals for country. He bagged in there. Bruno, our guy, giving absolutely everyone headaches because he looked so impressive. Scored 2 goals. The last one in injury time was a screamer. I think it was maybe just outside the edge of the area, which gives you an extra bonus point in these rules in fantasy football at Euros. So he's looked the goods, and Jota didn't get on the score sheet, but looked great. And Bernardo Silva as well, he looked on fire. So listen, I think there's some headaches. Portugal have got that great fixture against Hungary to start off with. So I think there's an opportunity there to load up with the triple on the assets, but it's just whether you can squeeze Bruno in there along with your other assets, because he is an expensive one, but he is worth it, isn't he?
Yeah, and it's just difficult with the four that you just mentioned there: Jota, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Just so many to pick from that Portugal side,
Yeah,
especially in
spoiled.
attack and in defence as well. So they're going to be a force to be reckoned with this summer, that's for certain. But it would have been really nice for you to see Bruno back on the score sheet, and priced 10.5 million he is in this, so he's definitely going to be one that I'm sure you're going to look at, isn't he?
Yeah, he was in my first draft, and I did take him out to just to look at everyone across the field and get more players in. But he's so tempting to get back in, and obviously you mentioned the defence as well with Cancelo from City. He got on the score sheet, nice left foot goal. He's a threat going forward as well. So yeah, too much choice in there.
Yeah, too much quality, but a team that's a little bit depleted of their first team quality at the minute, Matt, is the team that you wrote an article on the other day, which is Spain. And they've had a little bit of a COVID crisis, and we're sort of experts in this field now with what's happened this season with Fantasy Premier League. But, what do you sort of make of it? They still managed to field their under-21 side, didn't they, and still win quite convincingly. So are you sort of going to be a little bit wary of the Spain assets?
Yeah, it's going to be a last-minute job, I think, with Spain, right up until the deadline, and check the news, refresh Instagram pages and that type of thing. It's a big thing of mine, as I tend to stalk the players and see what they're up to on Instagram before putting them in my team. So I think I'll be doing a bit of that with the Spanish players before deadline, and seeing if they've got COVID or not.
Yeah, it's just the things that you've got to do these days with that sort of thing. But they've definitely still got the quality to impress at this summer's competition. So it will definitely just be sort of touch and go and a little bit interesting to see how it goes. And Ollie has just said all Spain players tested negative, I'm fairly sure. So I'm sure he's off in Europe right now, just in the Spain camp, just making sure that everyone's okay for his team there. But unfortunately, he can't make it tonight. But as you can see, he's here with us in the live chat, just sharing a little bit of insight. Usually it's you, Matt, giving us that insight. As you say, you like to follow the Twitter, follow the players, just see what they're doing. So maybe that's something that you've got to get on just to make sure that you're getting all your correct information, mate.
Yeah, 100%.
Do more, Guru. Do more.
Yeah, he's got to be doing more for us, hasn't he? But you do have your Guru section later on, so maybe a little mention here or there will be made. But we'll get on to the exciting stuff now. All the qualifiers and friendlies out of the way for the Euros, and on to the fixtures for match day one. As you can see, we're all extremely excited. It kicks off 5 a.m. Australian time on Saturday morning with Turkey v Italy. We'll just go through all of the fixtures and we'll sort of pick how we think it's going to pan out, have a little discussion. So we'll start with you, Jack. I'll give you the first game. First European Euro game in 5 years, we were talking before. So, it's going to be a very special one. I'm sure there'll be a lot of high viewership there. So Turkey v Italy, Jack. How can you see this one going?
Listen, it's actually I think it's going to be a cracking opening game, isn't it? Obviously, with Turkey, obviously they've got some great assets and great players in there. They've got the form of the veteran up top, Yilmaz, who's been on fire this season. But Italy, I think they're ones to watch. I had a little dabble in the betting market with them the other day, just as a big outsiders in there. I think they're exciting going forward. Italy traditionally very solid at the back, but this is definitely the most exciting team for them for the last, maybe 10 years, 15 years or so. So I think it's going to be a bit of a nerve-wracking game, but there might be some goals early on. I think we've seen that in previous big tournaments. Everyone's a bit nervous at the start, and all of a sudden there's a goal straight away. I'm going to go for Italy 2-1 in this one.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think it's going to be a close one. I think Turkey are, probably the dark horses of the competition this year for me. I think if there's going to be any team that's going to sort of shock everyone with the way that they perform, I think it's going to be Turkey. So, I definitely wouldn't put it past them, but Italy probably too strong for them. I would agree. And moving on to the second game of Group A, it's Wales v Switzerland. And just because it's Gareth Bale, Matt, we will go to you for this one. Sorry, Dave, you'll be next. But you could have this one. Matt, how do you think this one's going to go? Gareth Bale hat-trick?
Oh, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? Not sure on Wales now. Giggs is obviously not in charge. They do have quite a nice squad. Obviously, Switzerland, Reedy, who, big lover of the pod. He loves Switzerland. So I'm going to go Gareth Wales. Is what I'm going to call them. I'm calling them Gareth Wales.
Gareth Wales!
Gareth Wales 2, Switzerland 1, and Bale to bag both.
Bale to pull them over the line. Yeah, that's definitely a fair assessment of that game. I think Switzerland are probably Switzerland and Wales probably the two weaker teams in that group, but definitely both capable of doing things in the summer's tournament as well. We'll move on to Group B now, and Dave, I will not ask you this one because you've got your team Belgium in the next one. So Denmark, Finland. Personally, I think the Danish are going to be a little too strong for Finland there, and I think they'll probably prevail out of that one. Maybe goals from your old man Christian Eriksen, Matt, maybe, or something like that, or Yusuf Poulsen from RB Leipzig or something like that. But I think they'll probably win that 2-0, probably just being a little too strong for Finland in the end. But you've got Belgium v Russia now, Dave. So you've backed Lukaku, you backed Courtois, you backed Alderweireld in the previews the other day on Instagram at Esports Live now. So surely you're going to go for a Belgium win here.
Oh, 100%. I think this, out of all the games this weekend, or this match day, I think that's the one you want to load up on with players. I think there'll be clean sheets to be had for Belgian players. And I think even without, De Bruyne or Hazard playing full games, they'll be just too classy across the pitch, I think. And Russia won't have much to give in return.
Yeah, I definitely can't argue too much with that one either. I think it'll probably be a little bit of a domination from the Red Devils there. And Jack, as the little kid on the podcast with the England shirt on, the excited little boy, you can have England v Croatia in Group D, the opening game for the 3 Lions of the summer, and it's got to start with a win, doesn't it?
Of course it has. I'd love to say it's going to be a demolition, but listen, Croatia are probably the toughest team in our group. The Scottish will definitely give us a game, but I think the Croatians are going to be the hardest. I'm probably just going to go for a conservative score here of 1-0 to the 3 Lions. Don't know what the guru thinks.
And pick a little goal scorer for us there, mate. Is it going to be Harry Kane, Rashford, Grealish?
Listen, it's going to be Grealish for me because he's in my team. I've taken Harry Kane out.
Ooh, interesting. We will get onto that a little bit more later. Yeah, that's definitely a big shout there. We'll have to, sort of assess what you've done to your team there later. But that's a very, very big call. But we'll move on to the first game of Group C now. Austria v North Macedonia. Probably one of the more underwhelming games that we've talked about so far. And I'm sorry, Dave, you're going to have to give us your prediction for that one. So, what's your evaluation of that game?
Oh, look. Yeah, it's probably not the most interesting one. I certainly won't be staying up all night to be watching it, but probably I'd say Austria will probably get up by at least 2. But yeah, not by a huge amount.
Yeah, not too sure if Pandev can do it by himself anymore for North Macedonia these days, but it will definitely be an interesting one. And then we've got the Netherlands v Ukraine. So Matt, what's your assessment of that?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. I've always been a big fan of the style of football that Holland play, and the players of the past, but not too sure on their squad this year. So I'm going to go. Ukraine looked quite good in their friendly the other week too. So I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah, it's probably not too harsh either to say. I do understand what you're saying there with no Van Dijk or anything like that. And Ukraine impressed the other morning, didn't they? So it's definitely going to be one that is going to be interesting, and people might be overestimating the Dutch. I sort of agree with you there as well. So it'll just be interesting. We'll have to see how it pans out in a couple of days' time. And Scotland v Czech Republic are the other teams that partner England and Croatia in Group D. And I could probably see this one being a draw as well. Both teams won recently in their international friendly duties the other morning. So probably say a 1-1 between those two. I think maybe it would be rude to say Thomas Souček's not going to score in that one, I think. And maybe John McGinn, your man John McGinn, Matt. So we'll just have to see how that one pans out. But yeah, a 1-1 in that game. So that'll be it from me.
Hopefully the Czech Republic win that game. Sorry.
Yeah, we'd love that, wouldn't we? I'd love a Thomas Souček hat-trick, mate. I don't know about you, but that would be nice to see, wouldn't it?
Anything to beat the Scottish. It's fine. Go on.
As long as we batter them, that's all that matters at the end of the day. That would be brilliant. And then we've got Poland v Slovakia, Jack, for you to analyse for us. I think, just what are you going to make of that one?
Listen, I'm probably not going to analyse it, but I'll give you a score prediction. I'll go Poland 1-0.
Lewandowski?
No, Szczesny from goal kick. or Fabianski, who everyone plays.
If you're right with that one, then we'll probably be back on next week asking you for the lottery numbers, mate. So we'll just have to do that one. But yeah, 1-0. Poland probably too strong for Slovakia, but they have got Martin Dubravka in net, so you never really know.
Save points galore.
Exactly, mate. Save points galore. You never really know with those sorts of players. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. And then Dave, Spain v Sweden. What do you sort of make of that one?
Yeah, I think Spain will take that one out. Maybe not. Obviously, there's a bit of drama going on in the background. We don't know how that's going to play out yet. But I'd say if Ollie's right and everyone's tested negative, then hopefully that means Spain should take care of them fairly easily.
Yeah, and Ollie has said in the chat that he is now the COVID guru, so he's taken that title away from you, Matt, and I'm sure you're happy to give that over to him. So he's he's the little COVID analysis worker for Esports Live and FPL Addicts now, I guess. So whenever you've got COVID issues, drop them in the Discord, and Ollie will have to help everybody out. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to. And then moving on to the final group of the competition, Group F, the group of death. We've got Hungary v Portugal, and I'll save France, Germany for you, Matt, so you can have a little more fun with that one. But I think it's just going to be rude to say that Portugal aren't going to win this one. I can see them beating Hungary by about 3 or 4 goals. I think, we spoke about them before. Ronaldo, Jota, Bruno, Bernardo Silva, all the quality they've got. I think, probably a 3-0 Portugal in that one. And then Matt, to round off match day 1, we've got France v Germany, probably the game of the round in my opinion. So what are you going to make of that?
Yeah, it's going to be a brilliant game. I think Germany are going to win it. I think they'll be ready and they'll be prepared. I'm going to go 1-0 Germany.
Gundogan to score?
Yeah, Gundogan to score. Top corner.
Gundogan to score, to take his shirt off and have a picture of Matt Day, the guru, underneath on his undershirt.
Yeah, 1-0 to the Germans, I think.
Yeah, probably not a wrong assessment there at all in any way. I think, we always speak about Germany in terms of knockout competitions and how ready they are and how fierce they are and how feared they are. So, yeah, it's sort of going to be anyone's game that to take out, I think. But we will move on now swiftly, and we're going to analyse sort of the top assets for each position and, the top selected and why they're selected and maybe why they shouldn't be selected in our opinion. So we will start with the forwards. And Dave, it's no surprise to see that Romelu Lukaku is owned by 45% of Euro fantasy managers, is it?
Not at all. He was certainly probably the first one I picked in my team, and he's been stable in there throughout all my revisions that I've done. Look, I think, if you look at his form for into this season, then you can't. It's a struggle to go past him, and I think there'll be plenty of goals to be scored from Belgium, so he'll be featuring in many of them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's no surprise. I think he is the most owned player in the game. I will just check quickly, and yes, he is 1% more than N'Golo Kante. Just a little teaser for you there for the midfielders. But yeah, Lukaku, the most owned player as of now, could be subject to change within the next day or so. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised if he keeps that title for the most owned player at the start. And Jack, the man that you've just taken out of your team, Harry Kane, with 39% ownership. Do you think a few people are going to sail the ship with him and depart their ways?
I think you might have noticed, actually, I think Kane was around 44%, 43% over the last week or so. And a lot of people have kind of, he's dropped down there. Obviously, people have been moving the teams around. But I think, obviously, just that fixture against Croatia's, obviously not more of a guaranteed one. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed in this, but it's not the easiest fixture to contend with. So maybe that's where some people have had doubts about Kane in there. And obviously, with his price, obviously, definitely one of the more expensive ones in there, and for good reason. Obviously, being one of the best in the world, if not the. So yeah, I think he's well deserving to be up there. But obviously, his ownership is dropping there just because I think people are just having a look at that fixture and questioning whether it is a guaranteed one. But listen, he's going to be back in my squad after match week 1. Don't worry.
Yeah, the beauty of it is that there is only 7 game weeks, and you do get what the equivalent of an FPL wildcard would be. So you do get your limitless chip. So yeah, you're not sort of spanning it over 19 games with one of them every half a season. So yeah, you can definitely make the most of your chip there and play it as you wish. And then the final third that you could have in your team as the most selected striker is Kylian Mbappe, Jack. And is there any surprises there?
Mbappe, no, not at all. He's up there for good reason as well. I think he's not in my team currently, just because of that fixture against Germany as well. Just consider he's probably going to come in against Hungary. If he can move those players around, I'm going to try and tick off every striker the way I'm going at the minute. But I think Mbappe is on good form. Scored for France the other night as well in the friendly. I don't think Giroud's going to be taking his spot or anything anytime soon. But Mbappe can play anyway across that front three or front two. I think they played the other night. If they can, if he starts off with a bang against Germany, I think he's obviously going to fly in. But I think it's another difficult fixture, and he wasn't for me on this one.
Yeah, so Reedy hasn't really got through to you then. The other night he told you that you need a few more big players, and he said that Mbappe, earlier on I remember he said that Mbappe was the first name on the team sheet for him, so he hasn't really had that much influence on you yet.
No, not at all, and he talks more nonsense than me, Reedy.
As you said on the other podcast, he's got to check his FPL rank, and then he can start chatting up to you. But Matt, Cristiano Ronaldo there, if you can see on the screen, 27% ownership for Cristiano Ronaldo, priced at the same 12 million price point as Kylian Mbappe. Are you surprised that he doesn't have, just a little bit more ownership?
Yeah, I am, especially with the opening fixture. I think a lot of people, they're obviously got, because he's playing the last game, isn't he? On the last match day, so. A lot of people are put off by that. But for me, it's not going to put me off having him in my team. I think that's the fixture you want him in out of all the Portugal group games. So, yeah, I'm surprised he's not in,
strange one,
in more teams.
Yeah, it really is. I'm not too sure on that one either. Obviously, he's not in my team, so I can understand it a little bit more. I've gone with Mbappe, Kane and Lukaku for the moment. But, surprised 27% is quite low for him, especially for someone that's, regarded as one of the greatest in these sort of knockout competitions, and they are. Of course, we forget that Portugal are the reigning champions of the Euros, so they'll be wanting to keep their hands on that trophy at all costs. So surprised with 27% on Cristiano Ronaldo, and then Memphis Depay has got 21% ownership, priced at 10 million, and I'm sure Ollie will be really happy with that, to see that he's got other people that are going the same sort of way as him with Memphis Depay and their fixture against Ukraine. So his 21% of owners will be hoping that he can bag a few for him. But that's the top 5 most owned strikers in Euro Fantasy. And we'll move on to the midfielders now. We did just before a little teaser with N'Golo Kante, Jack, with 44% ownership. And it's a bit of an interesting one. He's priced at 5.5 million, so it's understandable. But why do you think so many people got the defensive midfielder like?
Yeah, I think. Listen, Kante's performances in the Champions League, what was it? 3 in the two semi-finals and the grand final, 3 man of the match performances. At 5.5, he's playing in a team who are one of the favourites for the tournaments. At 5.5, great value. Is he going to score? He's probably the least likely to score in that team because he'll be protecting the back line and mopping up. But can he score? Yes, we've seen goals in him before. He's guaranteed, to get some sort of points in there for his outstanding displays. His extra points for being involved in the play and mopping up, clean. So yeah, listen, I understand why people have got him in there, and there's for better value, there's not a huge amount of different ones available. I think Elliot's just struggling with his internet there. I might just jump on with this one. El, can you hear us? Right, okay. We'll go on to the backup version. I'll just jump onto my one. Dave, if you can look after Elliot in the background and try and get him back on once his internet has sorted itself out. We'll just look at the midfield options in there. I'll just take obviously Jota out there. Midfielders. So go on to midfielders. We're looking at we go recommended players. Price sort by not the price.
Selected by.
Selected by. Thank you. All good. So we've got Kante in there. Obviously, Matt, I'll just go over to you. Nigo from Hungary. What are you thinking about him at 4 mil, 39% ownership?
Yeah, it's definitely all about the fact that he's just an enabler who you put him in and he enables you to have better players in other positions. 4 million. That's the only reason a lot of people have him. he's on my bench, I think, as well. So he's just there. So I know having a bench is big in this Euro fantasy, but I think if there's one spot you can just kind of set and forget, it's that one, and having that cheap option in there.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, he's sort of the bench fodder, isn't he? Of the 4 million, one of the cheapest midfielders in the game. So that's probably his purpose in the game. Don't know how many minutes he'll get. Don't really know too much about him either. But it'll be a little bit interesting. And then we move on to Mason Mount at 7 million and 30% ownership. Dave, and are you surprised by that someone like Jack Grealish or Phil Foden isn't more owned by more percentage of people?
I think that's the whole thing at the moment, is no one really knows what's going on in Southgate's head and who he's actually going to start. Like I had Mount in my team for a while, and I've actually taken him out because I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'd rather transfer in while we've got free transfers somebody who's definitely going to play a lot of minutes, and take the safe option. And maybe after the first game, maybe you look at bringing those guys in because they'll have a couple of easier fixtures in match day 2 and 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And then probably the most surprising one I think we've had so far isn't Kante at 44% owned. It's Kevin De Bruyne at 25% owned at 10.5 million, and the massive injury cloud over his head, Matt. We talk a lot about, taking a look at all the players and stuff like that, but he surely can't play the first game. Only showed up to the Belgium training camp the other day, and he's pretty much been ruled out by everything that I've read from the first game. So are you surprised to see that the 25% of people playing this game, that's 1/4 have gone with Kevin De Bruyne?
Yeah, look, he's still in my team. I think it is a bit of a surprise. I think people are just holding for now until they get more news. He was pictured with the squad and that type of thing, and yeah, I think everyone's just holding now right up until deadline, and and they make the decision there. So, but look, if he was fit, then I think he'd be in all of our teams. But yeah, surprised that many people have retained him for now.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit touch and go, I think, reading all the news reports, watching all the press conferences, because Belgium, as we know, do have a pretty early game within the match week, so he doesn't have too much time to recover from his Champions League final injury, courtesy of Antonio Rudiger. But Rudiger's teammate, Joshua Kimmich, is the fifth most owned midfielder in the game. Another defensive midfielder, so it's very interesting. That's probably two more defensive midfielders, Kante and Kimmich, both that we've got, and he's just got 1% less ownership than Kevin De Bruyne. Jack, he's got 24% ownership at 6 million there, as you can see, and he's got France in his first game. So are you a little bit surprised by that one?
Yes and no. He was actually my first draft pick as well, in my first draft team. Just obviously found a few different other players, alternatives to him, but great player. I think he assisted the other night for Germany as well. Playing, I think he's playing right wing back or right centre mid, one or the other, or rotating between the two. But he's so versatile. He's had an outstanding last couple of seasons at club level as well. So not surprised in terms of his ability. He's a bit like Kante, I guess, in terms of that price and his performances that he puts in. So good squad filler. But I think there's a couple of different assets around that value you could get.
Yeah, definitely. One of them, as you can see there, highlighted in purple, Chiesa from Italy, 7 million, Matt, and 20% ownership. Is he one that people are maybe, looking at that 20% of people? I thought when I got him in, he was going to be a little bit of a differential, but I think maybe looking at that now, a few too many people might have him in their teams for my liking, I think.
Yeah, his ownership's through the roof now. And he's one of those, we're all talking about him now and hyping him up, and it's just, does he get the start? Does he put the performances in? So, yeah, that's big ownership for someone that is probably not guaranteed, his name on the team sheet, because he didn't play the last friendly, did he, Jack? I think he come on for the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think he's been in and out of Juventus this year, but I think he's still performed well. But for Italy, I don't think he's actually started that many since Berardi's burst on the scene. I think he's shown a lot. His stats are definitely shown a lot better than Chiesa's. I think you mentioned he was about 1 in 20. I think he scored on the international level, and Berardi's hit 5 in 10, I think it is. It might be 6 in 11 now after the friendly the other night, but Berardi at 6 mil for me. I think after this first game, they'll see a big change in the ownership with Chiesa.
I agree, and I think as well. Sorry, just to say, Jack, as well. I think with Italy, they're similar to England in the fact they've just got so many options going forward.
That's it. I think that's what puts them out of this outside chance, because it's so exciting. They don't know what Mancini's going to do really with the team, and what they're actually going to look like, and if they can perform in this big stage. And that's the excitement of the tournament, right? And that's why we can't wait to get going.
Yeah, and you might just as well have persuaded me there to downgrade, or maybe upgrade, downgrade in value, upgrade in, maybe potential points to Berardi there from Chiesa. So yeah, as we say, the draft teams that we show you today probably aren't going to be our final squads, because it's the classic fantasy team antics. 30 minutes before the deadline, you're still checking your team, making sure that it's all good for the season ahead. But they were the top 6, I think they were, for the midfielders, maybe the top 7. We didn't talk about Bruno Fernandes, but if we get onto the defenders, we start with the Portuguese in Ruben Dias. Dave, are you surprised by that? They've got a really favourable fixture to Hungary there, and a standout season, the Premier League Player of the Season. Deservedly or not deservedly, he was given Premier League Player of the Season for his brilliant debut season at Manchester City. So there's no surprise really that he's 41% of owned, is there?
No, look, I think for me, with my sort of defenders and goalkeeper, I'll be sort of chasing clean sheets. I think that's where most of my transfers are going to be. So I think certainly with that first game, I've definitely got. I've been tossing up between either Cancelo or Diaz, and I've gone with Cancelo at the moment. But yeah, certainly I'll be making a fair few changes at the back end to sort of go for the fixture I think who's going to have the highest chance of clean sheets.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt, you spoke a lot about the Dutch before, and the style of play that Netherlands play with, and Matthijs de Ligt, absolute young star, 5.5 million, 37% ownership. Are you surprised by that, with the sort of words that you were talking about the Netherlands before?
Yeah, no, I'm really surprised. I think looking at a lot of these ownership, there's a lot of players, world-class players, and they're kind of probably being picked more by, their legacy and, and their name, as opposed to their fantasy, football potential. And yeah, that's an interesting one for De Ligt, because I'm not sure if he's really a huge goal scoring defender, and the Dutch do let a lot of goals in, and they've shown that in their, they let 2 against was it 2 goals against Scotland in recently? Mm-hmm. So what's that say about them?
It doesn't really say much for them, does it, at all? You're not wrong there. They're conceding to the Scottish. And then the third most owned defender is Kjær from Denmark there. And he's one that I know that Ollie's got. So if Ollie is watching along, I'm sure he'll be piping up in the comments, hyping him up and telling us all to get him in our teams. But he's 4.5 million and 25% owned, Jack. So he's probably one that people are going to assume that is going to get the start, do you think, against Finland?
Yeah, listen, he should start. Denmark have got a nice, set of fixtures in their group. I think we put them down in our predictor for second place in there. So they've got a nice set of fixtures, and he should start. He's great value, and I think that's why he's so highly owned. It's interesting, obviously, the top 3 assets in there, they're all obviously centre-backs, aren't they? So it's quite interesting that there's no, usually in FPL, it's all full of full-backs and the wing-backs. So it's quite interesting to see they're the ownership rankings on the 3 centre-backs at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good point that you do make there. It's usually in Fantasy Premier League, if you play with a 4 at the back, you've got 4 fullbacks. If you play with a 5 at the back, you've got 5 fullbacks most of the time. And if you play with a 3 at the back, you've got 3 fullbacks. So, yeah, it's definitely a different kettle of fish, this Euro Fantasy, and, different playing field, different players, different minds, I guess, as well. So, yeah, they're favouring the centre-backs these days, I think, which is, it's still quite surprising, isn't it, considering it's a knockout tournament, Jack, and, you've got to go for goals. There's not really 38 games across the season where you can, hold out for draws and stuff like that. It's, goals galore usually in these sorts of competitions, isn't it?
Yeah, and you might find there's obviously a lot of goals coming from set pieces more and more often now, and obviously the last, with VAR and free kicks happening and tackles, and if you've got better set piece deliveries, the centre halves are going up and there's a chance to get even goals in there. So if you're getting these defenders at 4.5 and the bagging goals going up from corners, like you've got Torres in your team there. If Spain do play, he's a big lad and he's definitely a threat. And the likes of De Ligt and Diaz, these boys can get goals, and we saw how they performed, like you said, in this season.
Yeah, and Pau Torres will want to keep up his good form. In the last game that he played for his club, we've got to get it in somewhere.
Yeah.
Was the Europa League triumph over Manchester United, so he'll want to keep going with that, but we will move on to the most owned goalkeepers now. We'll just go through the top three, and Lucas Hiradecky there, Matt. He's he's very, very cheap for a constant starter at Bayer Leverkusen, and someone that is probably near enough guaranteed to start for Finland. He's priced at 4 million, and he's 35% owned. Is he one that you're quite surprised people have gone with, considering it is Finland, and no disrespect to them, but you're going to assume that they're going to leak goals, wouldn't you assume?
Yeah, you'd expect so. But I can see why people have done it. You always want to try and have that cheap starting second goalkeeper on your bench. And if your first starting goalkeeper lets in a couple of goals, you might want to sub him on. There's save points in this game as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
So you'd expect him to get quite a few saves, which could help with the points. So I can see why people have gone for him, though. It's a real good way to save some money, and you get a goalkeeper that's going to start and potentially make a lot of saves.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second one on the list there is my starting goalkeeper, Donnarumma from Italy. They're 5.5 million and 27% owned. And I don't really think there's too much of a surprise there. Italy have got a pretty favourable group, and he's a very well respected, well esteemed goalkeeper. Quite young still, which is quite shocking to a lot of people because he's been around what seems for years now, but started at such a young age his professional career. So a lot of people have gone with him. And then the final one that we'll talk about, Dave, is your man Thibaut Courtois, 6 million and 26% owned. Are you surprised by that, or is that just sort of standard for you and you think he should be a little bit more owned?
No, look, I think he's obviously slightly more expensive than the others, so maybe people might look for a bit more value from their keeper. But I think for me, like he's certainly going to get clean sheets throughout the tournament. So I think I haven't wavered from him as my starting keeper, and Schmeichel, who's number 4, is my backup. So they'll maybe with the interchange rules in the game, I might sort of rotate those two. But yeah, I'm not surprised that where he is where he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just a little bit of food for thought for all you Euro fantasy managers out there who are not too sure what to do with their transfers. Just a little bit of analysis on who the top owned are. And that was our predictions for the Euros as well. But that wraps up this section. Moving on now, we did do it only a couple of days ago. It's our draft teams, but I'm sure there's been a fair few changes for a couple of people. So we will start out with you, Jack. And the other day you made a lot of transfers. So what have you sort of done in the past 40 days, 72 hours to make changes to your team?
Yeah, it's listen, it's too hard not to make changes in this competition we're playing in. So I looked at that Spain debacle, what's going on with the COVID, and God knows what's going to happen. So I just wanted it out of sight, out of mind. So I took all my Spanish players out, 3 out and 3 changes in. And then, ended up with bringing, and then also with Harry Kane coming out, just with that Croatia fixture, gave me an option just to bring in Lukaku instead. So he's up top with Ronaldo, and then brought Cancelo in after his performance this morning for Portugal. And then, so with Jack Grealish, so that's getting an England player in there, and obviously he looks great. Does Jack sharing the initials there, JG? So yeah, obviously I want to see him do well and having that English player in there, and then just brought Arnautovic in for Moreno from that Spanish change. So I think Arnautovic could, he's actually a great player. I think everyone thinks his attitude stinks, but he's actually a class player. He's probably about 31, 32 now, but he's got a good record for Austria. And I'm sure he can maybe bag against Macedonia as well.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. And it's interesting, you've gone with a 15-man squad there instead of the 11, which a lot of people are going for. So is that sort of part of your plan? If you've got players like Cancelo that you can bring off the bench, it's going to be, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the mini leagues, aren't you?
I think so. You've got to look at that squad. I think that's the issue about overloading with your starting 11. I think this game allows you to move those subs around, pick and choose how you please, change your captain around. So if you need those options on the bench to bring in, and if Meunier, you don't know if he's going to play for Belgium to start off with because they've been moving their team around a bit. So if he's not playing, Cancelo can come in, or Denayer, who's great value. There's options on there and you need them, and if Arnautovic bags a hat-trick, obviously if you can bring him in, then looking great, so I've just got to pick that team right and going into the deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely a really solid 15-man squad that you've got there. We'll move on to the Guru now, and I'm probably inclined to think that he probably hasn't made any changes yet. He's keeping all of his picks a little bit secret and waiting for the deadlines as he does, working best under pressure. I think is that right to say, Matt?
Yeah, similar to FPL, I normally do my team with FPL. I normally do it in the last week, and then I don't like to kind of stew on it. And then the same with this Euros. Obviously, it's a shorter tournament, so I've kind of kept my team. And then tomorrow, I'll get to work and make some changes. I was going to quickly say, just on Jack's side, just to revert back, Arnautovic. Are you confident he's going to play, Jack? Because I have looked at him as one of my options, but I did hear he had a thigh injury.
Oh, well, if that's hot off the press, mate, then there we go. Eh? You love throwing something in the mixer.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and change my team around just now, mate.
I don't know I didn't know if I wanted to help him, obviously, because we're in this cash league. But I wanted to throw that one in the mix because my team's pretty plain at the moment. There's no changes. Still got McGinn in there. I've still got De Bruyne, so I'm one of the 27%. Chiesa, he'll probably be coming out. Alaba, he's sitting in there at the moment still. Not too sure. I fancy Austria that much, but he's cheap and he's going to be on the left wing. Still got Tim Krul in goal. Really happy with him. Semedo might have to go. I saw he didn't start today, so not sure who for. But yeah, not really much else. Keeping Harry Kane though, not taking him out. I think Golden Boot in the Premier League, Golden Boot in the World Cup. England at Wembley, everyone's going to be absolutely buzzing. I think there's about 25% capacity there on Sunday as well. So, yeah, I think Kane will score in that game.
Yeah, definitely the three things that are certain in life: death, taxes, and Harry Kane being in Matt Day, the Guru's fantasy Premier League or Euro teams all the time, mate. So, wouldn't expect any less from you there. And we'll have a quick look at his team now. Ollie, who isn't here tonight with us, but he has made a few changes, I think, or maybe he hadn't made any changes. I'm wrong. I think he hasn't been stewing over it like a lot of us have, and playing around a little bit there. So, he's not really made too many changes to his side, as he said. So we'll move on to you, Dave, and you can take us through your team. And have you made any changes, any amendments to your side?
I think in the last couple of days I've made a couple, as I said, sort of in the defensive sort of end. So, Kane, Lukaku and Depay have been there since day one, and I think they'll probably stay there. So I brought in Cancelo. Also, Bonucci's come in. Kante's made his way back in at the moment. For the same reasons we've sort of discussed already with him. Like he's obviously the cheapest midfielder and should get some game time. We'll see what happens there. Probably the only sort of sub that I'd look to make at the moment is Kaya to come in for Bednarak probably. And that's more just because of the day that the fixtures are on. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with where it's at the moment. I may make a small change, but pretty happy with where it's at. I've come around to Italy a little bit, hence why there's a couple of Italians on there now. So we'll see if they stay in there.
Yeah, we saw on your little infographic the other day on the Esports Live social pages, he was raving about Italy and Belgium. So Jorginho's definitely one that we haven't really talked about much. Talked about him a little bit this season with FPL, but he's obviously going to be one of the penalty takers, if not the penalty taker for Italy for the Euros. So is that all that's on your mind really from him?
Pretty much. I think Italy are going to be fairly strong. They've got a decent group. He'll be on pens, and I think he'll probably have a decent impact on the Italian side. So at the moment he's there, and I don't know if he'll stay or not, but at the moment he's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another one that I was saying with Jax. It's a really good 15-man squad that you can pick and choose and play around with as you wish during the game week. So it's a really, really good teammate. And we'll just move on to mine now, the last one out of all of us here. And I've only made one change, so it'll be really, really quick. And I went from Andy Robertson to Thomas Munir. I did speak about it last night on the podcast, but yeah, I didn't actually make the change. I thought I did. I hadn't. So Robertson's out, Munir's in. And then what will probably happen 10 minutes after the podcast is over is Chiesa will come out and Berardi will come in because, Jack Gillibrand is too persuasive and he swayed me one way. So, yeah, maybe try and build up a few funds to maybe upgrade from Jota to Bruno Fernandes as well, Jack, because, he's playing on my mind a little bit. So, you've been quite persuasive with me tonight. So, yeah, we've just got to hope that it pays off for me. But Berardi's definitely one that I'll be looking at. So, yeah, that's sort of all of our teams, but obviously they're going to be subject to change. It's going to be a lot of frantic clicking and happy times for us. So yeah, it'll be very interesting. But if they look nothing like this when the Euros start, then you can probably just assume that we've gone a little bit crazy and frantic with free transfers whilst we still have them. But that wraps up our draft teams. So moving on now, and we've got another Guru section. He did one that I think it was about a week ago now on the podcast that we did, but this is the one that you want to watch, the one closest to the deadline for your team. So we've got Matt Day, the Guru. He's back. He's got his ones to watch and his captain choices for match day 1. So take it away with your ones to watch, Matt.
Thanks, Elliot. And number 1 on the list to watch for this round is I'm going to put Christian Eriksen in there as a big differential. For Denmark, 5% owned, real favourable group for the Danes. 9 million price tag as well. Really big value there. You've got to have free kicks from him, probably penalties as well, and he's got a great record. For Denmark, I had a look at his record earlier. I think he had about 20 assists in his last 40 games and about 20 goals for them. So, really, really good asset to have in there. Another one who we've spoke about on the last couple of pods, John McGinn, 7.5 million, 1% owned. Really, really good record for Scotland as well. And they do play their next couple of group games. 2 of their 3 group games at Hampden Park. And the first game against Czech Republic is at home at Hampden Park. So I think he's a really, really good one to look at that 1% ownership. And another one going to Portugal. In defence, 5% ownership for Pepe. He played this morning for the Portuguese. He's obviously a veteran. He's been in plenty of World Cups, plenty of Euros. So, if you're confident he's going to get the start, he's a bit cheaper than the Diaz and the Cancelos of this world. He could be a bit of a set piece threat as well. And then going on to a fullback actually for North Macedonia has made the differentials list. It's going to be Alioski. 4.5 million. We know him very well from FPL and Leeds. He got a lot of points in FPL with his assists, bombing up that left-hand side, and he'd get a few goals. And I believe he might be on penalty kicks for North Macedonia, and he did score one in a recent friendly. So definitely one to watch out for. The Austria game is one of those as well that could go either way. So not a bad one to have in your defence. And then my last one to round up the ones to watch. It's going to be an Italian. It's going to be Barea in midfield at 3% owned. And I believe from Jack's comments in the group chat not so long ago, is he was Serie A Player of the Year. So had a great season for Inter Milan and 3% ownership. He's a pretty good price tag as well. So definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, definitely had a very good season out in Italy, didn't he? And a lot of people aren't really looking at Alioski, but probably the penalty taker of choice at the minute. So there are definitely some ones, just a little bit of food for thought for people for their differential sort of picks there. But we'll move on to your captain picks now. So take it away, mate.
Yeah, look, thanks. I've done a rotation, so I've got a captain for each night. So you can go Immobile from Italy on the first night against Turkey, and look, if he fails on day 2, you've got Lukaku for Belgium, who's obviously a favourite amongst a lot of fantasy managers. And then if he doesn't do anything, you've got day 3, Harry Kane, not a bad shout either. I've actually just realised they're all strikers, so you're obviously only allowed to pick 3 anyway. But Harry Kane's a good captain option if you've got him, and then Lewandowski from Poland, obviously a really, really good option with that Slovakia game. And he's one that I think a lot of people. I've not seen him in too many teams either, and that's a really, really good fixture on paper for him. And then the last one as a captain shout for this round is going to be on the last match day, and none other than Cristiano Ronaldo.
Well, mate, it'd be rude to not have Ronaldo in there, wouldn't it? So, yeah, definitely not too much of a surprise there. And do you have a curveball captain for us today? I know you like your little curveball. So have you got one, mate?
Yeah, look, I'm just going to pick one off the top of my head, and seeing a couple of the teams, there was a few players I liked in there, and I'm going to go with Jack Grealish.
Yeah, mate, that's completely understandable. He's in my side. As I spoke a lot about him in the article that I wrote the other day. He wins penalties. He's probably one of the first choice set piece takers now as well. Jack Grealish. No Ward-Prowse, no Trent Alexander-Arnold. So yeah, that's definitely a fair shout there. Is he one that you're going to look to get in your team? Do you think, Matt?
Yeah, possibly. Look, I'm tempted, but I've got a lot of my my money in Kane. For my England option, and I think with England, as Statman was saying earlier, you're not too sure who's going to play other than Harry Kane, really. So I've put all my money into him, and whether or not I want to double up in England right now, maybe not for the first round, but yeah, game against Scotland would be a bit easier, and potentially the Czech game. So yeah, not round one, but maybe the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So thank you very much for your second guru section of the Euro Fantasy season. And we will move on now to our two guests for the show. We'll start over with Reedy, who is the resident England fan on the podcast. He's been on here. He was on here the other night. He was on here a week ago as well. So how are you doing, Reedy?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks, Elliot. I'm just a regular now, aren't I? Almost feel part of the club, if you like. So yeah, I'm doing quite good, and I'm buzzing for the start of the Euros, as I'm sure the rest of you are. It's just around the corner now.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's just a day and a little bit away now. So we had a quick look at your draft team the other night. So if we bring it up on screen now, just to have a quick look at it, has there been many changes? A little bit trigger happy with the transfers? Have you been?
Yeah. I've probably sent Jack about 3 different teams today, to be honest with you. So, I've made changes. Lukaku was in at one point. I had Depay's in there. That's probably not the most updated one, to be honest with you, because I think I have got Mbappe back in. I changed the front 3, and obviously we chat Jack and Statman, and we all put things in each other's heads, ideas, and the cogs start turning, and you're like, oh, maybe I should put this guy in. So I have got Mbappe back in for Depay. I have took out Bruno Fernandes and Grealish, and I've got Fernan Torres and I think one other person. But yeah, it's going to be up until the last minute, like you said, like a lot of you said. You're going to be making changes right until the last minute. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and you spoke a lot about Kylian Mbappe to Jack the other week on the podcast, so it's quite surprising to see that you've taken him out of your team. But, as we all know, it's going to be very interesting to see, a lot of transfers will be made. So is he one that you think probably will resurface in your team?
He's back in as we speak. I just, I know there's a lot of doubts from people about the Germany game and it being, a difficult game, but I really can't. I think he's just going to light the tournament up, to be honest. And someone as good as he is, I can just still see him scoring. So I can't get away from him. And the trickiest thing, I think, for a lot of these Euro managers or fancy managers is that midfield headache. I think that's the biggest headache of all for most people. You can get obviously your couple of top strikers, and if you do budget and you want to get some quality players in the midfield, it's really tricky because you want to try and get players who are going to guarantee to start and maybe get goals and assists. So yeah, that's an area I think I'll be maybe making a couple more changes to.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And just 2 mini questions that we've got for you now. We're going to ask you first to pick one player from England that you think is going to absolutely light it up this summer at the Euros.
Oof. As we've said, we don't know which team Southgate's going to pick at the moment. I think we've all got our kind of like, our slight maybe bit of, what based on what he's played, the teams he's played. And I think Grealish is the standout player, really. That if he does start, I think he's going to make things happen. He looks exciting, as we know. He was exciting for Villa up until he got injured last season, and I just think he offers a different dynamic to the England setup. Really, you've got Phil Foden there, who can obviously do the same thing, but I think Grealish just kind of pips it for him, really, and hopefully he can do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And just really quickly, one player from the whole tournament that you think is going to light it up.
Oh, as I've said, it's got to be Ronaldo. It's Cristiano Ronaldo all day long. He'll just get the goals, the assists. Portugal, they've done great in the last few tournaments, so I'll go for Ronaldo.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the insight and just seeing how you're going, Reedy. We'll move on to our second guest now. We've got Sebastian, who's the resident Holland fan on the podcast. I don't think we've had a Holland fan or any Holland input on the Euro podcast so far, so it's very nice to have just a different perspective. So will you take us through your team, mate?
Sure. So, I tried to go for some left field picks, I'd say. So Wijndal seems to be quite a prominent back heading forward. When Holland played against Italy in either the Nations League or the World Cup qualifiers, Spinazzola was an absolute menace from fullback too. So I went for him. I was quite surprised that Eriksen was actually a lower owned player. So considering the draw that they have, I think he might be able to score a lot of points, especially in the group stage. I still need to change some of my Spain players, I think, because it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, they seem like they're having a little bit of issues at the minute, but it's nice to see a little bit of Dutch representation from you there. Just from you, who's one player this summer that you think from your home nation, the Netherlands, that's going to do really well? You've got two in your team there, but is there anyone else, or are you going to go with Depay or Wijndal?
Oh, definitely. I'd say Memphis is the main man, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Ollie, who's not on tonight, but he's got Memphis Depay in his team. And we spoke about his ownership before. A lot of people favouring him. You would have been absolutely delighted with his performance of the day against Scotland, wouldn't you?
Yeah, even though the whole team itself played rather terribly, but I think we played a little bit better against Georgia recently, which was good to see. And the other striker, Weghorst, he managed to bag his first international goal, so it's a good start.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit better for the Dutch in the summer. But who's one player from the tournament that you think is going to do really well as well?
That's a good question. I think it's quite tough. Definitely one of the Portugal players, probably Bruno, is one of the main men, I think. I mean, his performance in the EPL were absolutely crazy, and it's kind of the best Portuguese team that I've seen in a long time. Otherwise, I'm probably looking towards maybe Gnabry from Germany if we really if they manage to escape the group.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got the group of death there, but it'll be very interesting. Some nice insight from you both there, Chris and Sebastian. So we do thank you very much for being on the podcast today. And obviously, you're both a part of the paid league and part of the community on Discord and everything. So get involved if you're not already in it. So you can never know, you could get yourself on the podcast as well. So just a reminder for the 200 members that are already in, you don't need to listen to this, but join our mini leagues for both paid and free, and enter our Discord for live banter, advice, and opinions all across the world. Head to esportslive.com.au for weekly articles and more information, and head to @esportslive now on our socials. Take care, stay safe, may all your Euro fantasy dreams come true. Enjoy match day 1 of the Euros. Bye for now.